This is the final part of the tale of Perseus, and this is starting on the top of page 7, where we last left off. So it says, yet even more fair than even the nymphs of the Hesperides. Invisible in his helmet of darkness, Perseus drew near and saw that the fragile white figure was shaken by shivering sobs. The waves every few moments lapped up on her little cold white feet, and he saw that heavy chains held her imprisoned to that great rock in the sea. A deep anger stirred in the heart of Perseus, and swiftly he took the helmet from his head and hovered beside her. The maid gave a cry of terror, but there was no evil thing in the face of Perseus. Nothing but strength and kindness and purity shone out of his steady eyes. Then, when very gently he asked, what was the meaning of her cruel imprisonment, she told him her piteous story. Her mother was queen of Ethiopia, she said, and very, very beautiful. But when the queen had boasted that no nymph who played amongst the snow-crested billows of the sea was as fair as she, a terrible punishment was sent to her. All along the coast of her father's kingdom, a loathsome sea monster terrorized the people, and hideous were its ravages. Men and women, children and animals, all were equally desirable food, and the whole land of Ethiopia lay in mourning because of the beast. At last her father, the king, had consulted an oracle that he might find help to rid the land of the monster. And the oracle had told him that only when his fair daughter, Andromeda, had been sacrificed to the creature that scourged the sea coast would the country go free. Thus had she been brought there by her parents, that one life might be given for many, and that her mother's broken heart might expunge her sin of vanity. Even as Andromeda spoke, the sea was broken by the track of a creature that cleft the water as does the forerunning gale of a mighty storm. And Andromeda gave a piteous cry. Lo, he comes, she cried. Save me, oh, save me. I am too young to die. Then Perseus darted high above her, and for an instant hung poised like a hawk that is ready to strike. Then, like the hawk that cannot miss its prey, swiftly he swooped down and smote with his sword the devouring monster of the ocean. Not once, but again and again and again he struck the beast, until all the water round the rock was turned into blood-stained froth, and until his loathsome combatant floated on its back, mere carrion for the scavengers of the sea. Then Perseus hewed off the chains that held Andromeda, and in his arms he held her tenderly as he flew with her to her father's land. Who so grateful then as the king and queen of Ethiopia? And who so happy as Andromeda? For Perseus, her deliverer, dearest and greatest hero to her in all the world, not only had he given her her freedom, but he had given her his heart. Willingly and joyfully, her father agreed to allow Andromeda to become Perseus's bride. No marriage feast so splendid had ever been held in Ethiopia in the memory of man. But as it went on, an angry man with a band of sullen-faced followers strode into the banquet hall. It was Phineus, and he who had been betrothed to Andromeda, yet who had not dared to strike a blow against the monster for her rescue. Straight as Perseus, he and his men rushed, and fierce was the fight that then began. But from the goatskin where it lay hid, Perseus drew forth the head of Medusa, and Phineus and his warriors were instantly turned into stone. For 7 days the marriage feast lasted, but on the 8th night Pallas Athena came to Perseus in a dream. Nobly and well hast thou played the hero, O son of Zeus, she said. But now that thy toil is near an end, and thy sorrows have ended in joy, I come to claim the shoes of Hermes, the helmet of Hades, the sword and the shield that are mine own. Yet the head of the Gorgon must thou yet guard a while, for I would have it laid in my temple at Sipharos, so I may wear it on my shield for evermore. As she ceased to speak, Perseus awoke, and lo, the shield, helmet, sword, and winged shoes were gone. His dream was no false vision. Then did Perseus and Andromeda sail away westward, until at length they came to the blue waters of Aegean Sea, and saw rising out of the waves before them the rocks of Sipharos. When the rowers rested on their long oars and the red-prowed ship grounded on the pebbles of the beach, Perseus and his bride sought Danae, the fair mother of Perseus. Black grew the brow of the son of Danae when she told him what cruel things she had suffered in his absence from the hands of Polydectes. Straight to the palace Perseus strode, and there found the king and his friends at their revels. For 7 years Perseus had been away, and now it was no longer a lad who stood in the palace hall, but a man, in stature and bearing like one of the gods. Polydectes alone knew him, and from his wine he looked up with mocking gaze. "So, thou hast returned, O nameless son of a deathless god," he said. "Thou didst boast of a gift, but methinks thy boast was an empty one." But even as he spoke, the jeering smile froze on his face, and the faces of those who sat with him stiffened in horror. "O king," Perseus said, "I swore that the gods helping me, thou shouldst have the head of Medusa. The gods have helped me. Behold, the Gorgon's head." Wild horror in their eyes, Polydectes and his friends gazed on the unspeakable thing, and as they gazed, they turned to stone, a ring of gray stones that still sit on a hillside of Sephoros. With his wife and his mother, Perseus then sailed away, for he had a great longing to take Danae back to the land of her birth and to see if her father, Acrisius, might repent of his cruelty to her and to his grandson. But there he found that the sins of Acrisius had been punished, and he had been driven from his throne in his own land. The people of Argos were heartened by the arrival of Danae, their castaway princess, and they eagerly acclaimed the heroic Perseus to be their glorious king. But Perseus refused. "I go to seek Acrisius," he said. "My mother's father is your king." Again he sailed away on a difficult mission, searching for the fallen king. Finally, in a town of Larissa, a sporting festival was underway when Perseus arrived. Beside the king in the royal viewing booth sat Acrisius, an aged man, yet a kingly one indeed. And Perseus thought, "If I, a stranger, take part in the sports and carry away prizes from the men of Larissa, surely the heart of Acrisius will soften towards me." Thus did he take off his helmet and armor, and stood unclothed beside the youths of Larissa, and so godlike was he that they all said amazed, "Surely the stranger comes from Olympus and is one of the immortals." He chose a discus from the stack of equipment, and full 5 fathoms beyond those of the others he cast it, and a great shout arose from those who watched, and Acrisius cried out as loudly as the rest. "Further still," they cried, "further still canst thou hurl. Thou art a hero indeed." And Perseus, putting forth all his strength, hurled once again, and the discus flew from his hand like a bolt from the hand of Zeus. The watchers held their breath and made ready for a shout of delight as they saw it speed on, further than mortal man had ever hurled one before. But joy died in their hearts when a gust of wind caught the discus as it sped and hurled it straight at Acrisius, the king. And with a sigh like the sigh that passes through the heavens, through the leaves of a tree as the woodsman fells and it crashes to the earth, so did Acrisius fall. To his side rushed Perseus and lifted him tenderly in his arms. But the spirit of Acrisius had fled. And with a great cry of sorrow, Perseus called to the people, "Behold, I am Perseus, grandson of the man I have slain. Who can avoid the decree of the gods?" For many years thereafter, Perseus reigned as king of Argos, and to him and to his fair wife were born 4 sons and 3 daughters. Wisely and well he reigned, and when at a good old age death took him and the wife of his heart, the gods who had always held him dear took him up among the stars to live forever and ever. And there still on clear and starry nights we may see him holding the Gorgon's head. Near him are the father and mother of Andromeda, Cepheus and Cassiopeia, and close behind them stands Andromeda with her white arms spread out across the blue sky, as in the days when she stood chained to the rock. And those who sail the watery ways look up for guidance to one whose voyaging is done and whose warfare is accomplished, and take their bearings from that constellation. The end.